Hi everybody, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today we're going to continue the videos on workflows, and we're going to discuss the importance of establishing a workflow for refilling prescriptions. I'm saying refilling prescriptions specifically because usually when a prescription is being initiated by the provider, the patient is in the office, the provider does it themselves while the patient is being seen or right after they leave. So I feel like that's kind of a given workflow, if you will. But where I see a lot of new practices kind of be scrambling and trying to figure out is when they start seeing refill requests coming through and not really sure exactly who's supposed to be doing what, and if it's okay to do that, yada, yada, yada. So the first thing is making sure, of course, that your policies and procedures reflect the workflow. This also is important if you have medical assistants that work under your medical license, and making sure that you have written out the orders and the things that are okay for them to do on your behalf. Being as specific as possible is essential just for their safety, the patient's safety, and also your safety. And when I say their safety and your safety, I'm talking about making sure you're not putting anybody at a high liability. Not only does this affect the back office, but it's also going to affect the front office. And I think that's where a lot of people forget about establishing workflows in this regard. Now, with the age of EHRs, we are able to have interfaces with our pharmacies, and they can directly send prescription refills through that interface. But a lot of prescription refills still come through faxes. So whether you get paper faxes and they're printed and distributed in your office, or they come in electronically and have to be distributed, most likely in your practice, the front office are the ones that are going through the faxes when they're received. Especially anybody who has not worked a front desk before or worked in a small office where people wear multiple hats, they're not going to understand that the refill requests or anything that has to do with prescriptions, frankly, have to go to the back office staff. Sometimes they'll be sitting there because they're not sure where it needs to go, and they get distracted doing other things and forget to go back, and you don't want that prescription to be sitting there. There should be a policy that refill prescriptions should be refilled within 24 hours of being received, unless it's after hours, like over a weekend when you guys aren't working. So 24 business hours, let's say. But so it needs to start with the front office and knowing how to identify refill requests and other prescription communication, and who specifically to have it sent to for it to be addressed appropriately. Then the next step is whomever it is sent to, whether it's a group or a specific person, they need to understand what is okay to refill and when and why, or what needs to go to whom to approve it before they can send it back off to the pharmacy. What we did in family medicine is we had the types of medications or the families of medications, and the doctors set out specific guidance on those for us. So for blood pressure medication, diabetic medication, insulin specifically under diabetic medication, thyroid medication, hormones, whether it's birth control or estradiol. And we had to make sure that we were checking patients' charts for certain information, last visits, last blood pressure, last refill on the prescription itself, looking at all these things. And then we would take it to the provider, and they would have all the information in front of them and say, yes, it's okay to do this many refills, or this patient, you can refill one time, but they need an office visit, or you need to call this patient because they're past due and we already refilled it once because they were supposed to be seen and they haven't. So they did that. And then once we worked with them long enough and they trusted us and they knew we understood, we were able to refill things on our own and not have to get it approved by them because they went even further in those guidance. So if patient was seen 3 months ago, you can refill this med for another 3 months because their recheck is in 6 months total. Or this patient is due for their PAP, so they can only have one more refill. And they would put things out really specifically so we didn't have to bug them as much. And I don't want to say bug as an inconvenience, but it was just more efficient because we could process them and get them back to the pharmacy for the patient to be able to pick up faster. When it comes to controlled medications, that's a whole nother issue, right? I mean, the controlled medications, especially the way they're cracking down on opioids and any kind of C2s, I mean, those are things that you want to make sure are extremely thorough in your policies and procedures, and that your providers are strictly the ones that are dealing with that. That doesn't mean that the nurses and the MAs can't help get you the information that you're going to need in order to make the decision on the medication or to contact the patients if needed. But it's definitely better to have your providers dealing with that than your MAs or nurses. But these are things that in a new practice, and when you're stuck in the hustle and bustle of trying to hire and set up your other workflows and setting up vendors and putting together your office like physically with furniture and supplies, it's something that you don't think about is significant until it starts coming in and you're like, oh my gosh, we don't know how to deal with these. And you don't want to be stuck that way, and you're never going to think of everything. You're not going to ever be fully prepared, but this is a big deal because it does affect patients' health. It is a reflection of you and your office and your business efficiency, and you want to have a good reputation in your community. So this is something that I really feel like should be well thought out, should be, put on paper, and then all the trainings to all the staff involved should reflect exactly what the policies and procedures say. You should have standard operating procedures step by step to refer your staff to make sure that they're doing everything correctly, or if they forget something they can reference, and then everything will run a lot smoother, and it's less things taking you off of task or being able to focus on the things that you really do need to focus on after you open. If you have any suggestions for me as a provider or someone who has had to establish these workflows in their office themselves, please leave that in the comments below. Smash that thumbs up button if this was helpful, or if it was something that brought things to mind that you hadn't thought about. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate the support so much. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.